If you're in favor of freedom of speech, that means you're in favor of freedom of speech precisely for views you despise. Otherwise, you're not in favor of freedom of speech.
Good evening, dear listener. You're listening to Binghamton Review Live on WHRW. My name is Patrick. I'm here again with Matt and Jordan for our full cast show. Hello, everyone.
Hey, guys.
What's up, guys?
All right, so we're going to jump right into it. We had our first episode last week. It was sort of a trial run. We are here in full today. We will start on... Let's see, what do you guys want to start with?
Probably the national emergency.
Okay. Yeah. All right. So we'll start covering that. As you probably are aware from most of the news outlets reporting it, President Trump is expected to declare a national emergency to provide funding for the border wall on the U.S.-Mexican border. I believe he got some money for it in the budget. Wasn't like
it was like 1.5 or 3. I've heard 1.5 or 1.3.
I think it was 1.37.
Yeah. Okay, very precise. But yeah, okay, so yeah, 1.37, which is less than I think he asked for, like $8 billion or something, right? 6 billion.
Well, he asked for 5.7.
5.7.
The original bill that he vetoed at first, causing the shutdown, had 1.7 billion. So he got less than he was originally offered.
Okay, all right, and so now the government is still open for now, right?
Correct.
And then when is the next bill that he has to approve, or else it goes into shutdown again?
Not sure.
Okay.
Nobody really talks about it because they don't expect it to happen.
Yeah, that's
but
right.
A couple months probably. I don't remember how long they funded the government for.
Yeah, to be honest, I don't know either. I know that the last due date was like February 15th or something like that, but I don't know when this next one is.
Okay.
It's just so hard to keep track of that it's like, oh.
Yeah. So we're doing a shutdown, or no, not shutdown, a national emergency. Is this constitutional? Is this, something that should be expected of the president? Is this emergency at all? Matt, why don't you start?
Oh boy, there's so much. So, is it constitutional? Kinda. I mean, your Congress did pass the National Emergencies Act, which there's 30 other national emergencies already in place between Obama, Bush, Clinton. This is not new. It just seems new because Trump, because Wall. But I like Mike Lee's take on it. Like, is this legal? Sure, but should it be legal? No, I don't think so at all. And I don't think we should sit here and be hypocrites, whether you're Republicans or Democrats, because I'm a personal Republican. I'm a fan of President Trump. However, if Obama did something like this, I'd be freaking out right now. I mean, I'd be mad. So that's why I've been saying before he had the shutdown, the national emergency in the first place, like a couple months ago when he first said it, I was like, no, this is a bad thing. This is going to set a really bad precedent. What happens when Bernie Sanders or Kamala Harris, what happens when they're elected and they declare a national emergency on gun control or climate change or something like that? This is going to be really bad when a Democrat gets in power. It should not be constitutional. So the way it is now is that power's flowing up from the state to Congress to the president. States keep giving Congress more power, and Congress keeps giving the president more power, and that's not the way it should be. It should be going backwards. Power should be devolved downward, not upward. So I do agree that we should have a law, but this is the wrong way to do it. He should have done this when we had a Republican Congress, or he should have kept the shutdown, made the Democrats explain why this is a bad idea, because they can't. They don't have a reason why this is a bad idea. That's just my personal opinion. It's probably legal, but it shouldn't be.
Jordan?
Yeah, I agree with a lot of what Matt said, except for the specific need for the wall, but we've debated that a bunch of times, so you know our positions on it, especially if you've been listening to us for the past couple semesters, so I'm not really going to get into that. We'll just agree to disagree, but I definitely agree that the people that support this, it's a very slippery slope, and you have to understand that, because as Matt said, what if, in a hypothetical world, let's say Bernie Sanders gets elected in 2020. Okay, well, one of his priorities, now I happen to agree with this, but one of his priorities is Medicare for all. We have 32,000 to 45,000 people that die every year in the United States because they don't have access to basic health care. So that technically, Bernie Sanders could twist that into a national emergency and just do a complete overhaul of the American healthcare system, and then all of a sudden, all the Republican voters and even some of the people in Congress that support this are going to have their hair on fire. And it's like, and I totally agree with Matt that it's like, you guys are just, you know, if you get mad at that, you guys are just hypocrites. Like, you know, it's like you can't have it both ways. You can't say, you know, oh, you know, we shouldn't give the president too much power when we disagree with his policies, but when we agree with his policies, all day long, just bestow all the power in the world on him. And, you know, also, one thing I wanted to bring up was Trump, a few days ago, gave a speech in the Rose Garden, and he literally said, and I quote, you know, I didn't need to do this, I just wanted to do it faster. But that's a seriously tyrannical move. You know, that's a really, you know, and it undercuts your case of it being a national emergency, because if you're saying, oh, I didn't really need to do this, that contradicts your entire point. And so even if Trump thought that in his heart, you still can't say that, because then you just look like a fool. You look like an idiot, and you look totally inconsistent, and you look like a 5-year-old. Like, I can't get my way all the time, so I'm just going to declare a national emergency to get what I want. It's like, that's not how politics works, not in America anyway. It's like, that's not how our system is supposed to work. So this is just totally insane, and this is probably the first time in a long time where I'm in like 90% agreement with Matt on something. So
Yeah, it's not exactly an emergency. It's a slow-moving problem. I mean, it's not like all of the, like, it's not like millions of people are all crossing the border at the same time. It's coming slowly, or they're coming legally and not leaving. So it is a problem, which is why I do think we need better border security. But it's not an emergency. And I don't totally blame Trump, just like I don't totally blame the other presidents, because I blame Congress for this. Why pass a National Emergencies Act where you're handing over all of this power to the president without the ability to say no to him? That's crazy to me. And if you are, at least clarify what these emergencies are. Like, hey, China just invaded us. This is an emergency. We don't have time to go to Congress and ask for permission, blah, blah, blah. Sure, that's an emergency, but something like the 31 national emergencies that we have now, we'd be fine without all of them. I totally blame Congress for this, and if you're going to ask me for my prediction on the end of this, there's not going to be a wall. I said that before when Trump was considering national emergency. I said, if you continue the shutdown, you can get a wall. You can get your way. If you declare national emergency, the courts are going to strike this down, whatever.
Right. Eminent domain stuff, too.
Yeah, a lot of people...
property are going to be like, no, you can't take this.
Exactly, yeah.
Which you shouldn't be. I'm for eminent domain, but when it's one single person saying, I'm going to take your property for this, didn't go through Congress, that's also wrong. But it is legal for now. I mean, Congress did pass this act, which should not have happened. So he did have the right to, just as, like I said, I agree with Mike Lee's take on this, that it's legal, but it shouldn't be.
Right. I know all the people saying, like, you know, this is worthy of impeachment, but, like, Congress said that it was legal, so...
And then if this is worthy of impeachment, why wasn't Obama impeached for his national emergencies, or Bush, or Clinton?
Yeah.
It's hypocritical on both sides. Democrats shouldn't be all up in arms about this, because Congress gave the power, and all 3 previous presidents have used it. But also Republicans shouldn't be like, yay, national emergency, unless you are not exactly like us. I mean, all 3 of us consider ourselves libertarians, and we're for less government control. So if we're saying, hey, good job, Trump, just because I want a wall, then that's kind of ideologically unsound.
Right.
Yeah, and just a quick... I was talking to Matt earlier, and I was talking about how on Fox News, after Trump, in his initial Oval Office address, announcing that he might declare a national emergency, they basically fact-checked him on a lot of the stuff he was saying, how he's saying, oh, you know, they're bringing drugs over the border, and they're... But, I mean... Technically that's true, but it actually is through legal ports of entry that the drugs are coming through most predominantly. And they also, immigration, specifically through Mexico into the United States, has been declining over the past 10 years or so. There have been more people leaving this country than coming in, so from Mexico.
Right.
So what I would say to the people that are sort of hyping this up is just calm down. You know, I'm not denying that it's a problem. I think, for instance, Matt and I have different solutions to that problem, but we both agree that it's a problem. There's just, you know, we've just got to just calm down and figure out a reasonable, rational, and fair, I guess you could say, solution to this issue. So that's basically my point on that.
With reasonable and rational, while I am criticizing President Trump, I do think the Democrats are being even more unreasonable by denying him the money. I mean, this is a very small amount of money. The 5.7 that he asked for, that's the amount that we spend in 11 hours every single day. It's such a small amount of money to fill a campaign promise that all these Democrats used to be in favor of. They're causing this whole problem just not to give a win to Trump. And also because anything that Trump likes, they have to automatically not like. There's no way around that. So while Trump didn't make the smartest decision, the Democrats are being way more unreasonable. And I am kind of afraid of this too, because the budget that Trump did eventually sign with the $1.3 billion, the Democrats specifically put in a lot of provisions saying you could only put it in certain sections of the border, and you have to use it for these certain reasons. So, literally, if he tries to build a wall across the border, Democrats could come back and say, no, our law, our bill that you signed said that you can't spend that money. So they could have made a really smart political move by putting in a bill that Trump did sign that will stop himself from using the money that he gets from the military.
That would be sneaky.
Yeah.
All right. Well, it remains to be seen what will happen at the border, but we'll keep you updated as things progress.
For sure.
Speaking of things progressing, we will now take a look at some of the frontrunners of the Democratic Party for presidential elections in 2020. Notables for you guys. Jordan, you got any notables?
It's funny that you use the word notable because I'm pretty much the only person in this room right now that, full disclosure, I was once a Democrat. Those days are long gone, but I was. And so I'm really salty about them. And so in terms of notable, my good friend Patrick, they're notable in how awful they are. That's what, Cory Booker, Kamala Harris, Amy Klobuchar, all these guys, Joe Biden, all these guys are just, they're so insufferable because they're basically, they do the same formula that almost every other Democrat in Congress, save, I mean, he's technically an independent, but save maybe Bernie Sanders, who's less of this. But this is what the Democrats do to their base, to the, as a former Democrat, I can tell you, Democrats do not care about their base. The Republicans, what they do is they actually serve their base and don't abandon their base. Even when they're doing things that are against the base's interests, they still talk a good game and are able to get their base excited to vote for them. The Democrats, on the other hand, this is 99.9% of the Democratic Party in a nutshell. Oh, we don't hate gay people. We don't hate black people. Anyway, let's support every war ever, and let's support further Wall Street deregulation, and let's support warrantless NSA spying. And in Obama's case, let's expand NSA spying. That's very good. Thanks, Obama. That's it's just insane. And then you have people like Amy Klobuchar did a town hall, I think last night or a couple days ago, whatever. Do you know when that was, Matt? The Amy Klobuchar's town hall?
I know what you're talking about.
I've actually never heard of her. Where is she? And where is she from?
Minnesota.
Yeah,
she's senator from Minnesota.
She's from Minnesota, and so she was doing a town hall on CNN because all CNN does is cater to establishment Republicans and establishment Democrats in particular. But anyway, the point is, Amy Klobuchar was asked a question about foreign policy, and like basically what her foreign policy is, and she criticized Donald Trump for actually doing certain things right on issues of Russia and issues of North Korea. You know, that basically because he's trying to make peace with North Korea, that's bad. So it's just so insane that the Democrats are both perceived and are technically supposed to be a left-wing party, but you have a candidate in this election who's resisting Trump, not from the left, but from the right. You know, so it's just, it's an insane state of affairs. And then, of course, you have Kamala Harris, who she is just, oh my God. My blood's starting to boil. I'll let Matt talk in a second, but Kamala Harris is another one. Cory Booker, you know, both of these guys are just, they use their color, quite frankly. They use their race as, you know, as a, and in Kamala Harris's case, it's her race and her gender, to basically garner support from the Democratic base, even though that their policies, which we can, you know, get into another time, are objectively hurting the very communities that they claim to be serving. So these Democrats are just, it's a terrible, terrible swath of candidates. You know, this is just insane. Matt, go ahead.
All right, so there's about like 4,000 Democrats running. In
Yeah, no,
2020.
seriously.
Like there's just
Yep.
random people. It's insane. But there's a couple strategies within the Democratic Party that I don't know which one's going to work. Kamala Harris is going for the I'm going to run like Barack Obama type strategy. A couple of them are running for the millennials, like Beto is. And a lot of them are running based on their race or their gender or whatever. So it's really interesting. So there are people that don't even matter. Like Cory Booker, no chance. Kirsten Gillibrand doesn't even show up on the polls. She has like 0% support. Crazy. So the ones that really matter are Beto, Kamala, Bernie, and Biden.
What do you think about Elizabeth Warren? I'm just curious. What do you think about
Elizabeth
her?
Warren's done.
Okay.
She didn't have a
I
chance
agree.
from the
I
beginning.
agree.
Because she's trying to run the Hillary campaign, but with
Right.
less name recognition, less history, less enthusiasm, less charisma. She didn't have a chance from the beginning, and then Bernie jumped in the race, and he took her spotlight because she was trying to run the Bernie campaign, trying to be the same person that Bernie was in 2016, and Bernie's like, nope, never mind, I'll take that back.
Yeah.
So she's
Yeah.
done.
Just curious.
Beto's probably done too. Beto has approximately 0 positions on anything ever.
Yep.
There was an interview with him a while ago where they were like, so Beto, what are you going to do about this problem? And he's like, I don't know. I'm sure someone out there has a solution. I'm open to hearing. I'm like, are you... No, this is how it works. You run for president by giving ideas, and we pick based on your ideas.
Right.
You don't get to run by being the best listener to the people. That doesn't work.
It's funny that he's like the guy running that lost his Senate race.
Yeah, yeah.
Yep.
Beto has no chance. There's already talk about Beto being Biden's vice president, which could be smart. Beto's very popular, especially with the millennials, especially with the Bernie Sanders crowd, which that's where Biden is lacking. Kamala Harris is running the intersectional campaign. You know, I'm a
Right.
woman and I'm black, and I'm
Yeah.
going to win the same way Barack Obama did. She might be too moderate to win the primaries. It's really crazy. People are criticizing her for being a former prosecutor, for being too moderate, which is insane because she's radical. And then Bernie's being criticized for being too white and too old and too rich. So
That's true.
it's crazy the kind of things that are going on. So it's so weird to think who's going to win this primary by being the most intersectional, by being the most left-wing, which neither of those are really going to work, because if you pick the most left-wing person, Trump's going to beat him.
Right.
I don't know. I don't think the Democrats know what they're doing right now, and they got to figure it out soon. I hope they don't, because I think all of them would be really bad for the country. But those are the notables: is Kamala, Bernie, and Biden.
Yeah. I don't really know how, because you mentioned Beto O'Rourke and I don't know how he pulls with millennials. Do you have any information on that? Because I kind of thought that was a little bit odd because, I mean, millennials like Bernie Sanders, and some of them, I think, like Cory Booker, Kamala Harris, but do you have any stats on the on how Beto polls with?
Not specific numbers. I know by himself he polls very, very well with millennials. I don't know how he goes with Sanders, so that's interesting to see if they both, in either the primaries or in just pollsters, how the millennials split votes between the two of them.
I know you see the videos of back when Beto was running his Senate campaign. You'd see all the videos of like people doing cheers in a field at his rallies.
Yeah, the YMCA.
Yeah, the BETO.
BET.
So weird.
Oh, and one quick note about Kamala Harris with her town hall and her, her sort of media circuit, media tour or whatever that she's been doing. It's interesting because she basically tried to, because again, this is what the Democrats do, and they're not even good at it. They're not even convincing. This is what she was talking about. She was asked about healthcare, and she said something about we're going to get rid of private insurance or something like that. And I thought that was kind of interesting because here's why she said that. She knows that the Democratic base predominantly supports that. However, she also knows that if she's elected, the Republicans have control of the Supreme Court and the Senate. So she knows that even if she were to propose, even if a bill came to her desk that said ban private insurance, she knows that that's not going to pass, which is why she's in favor of it. This is exactly what the Democrats do. So I think Matt and I, again, will have to agree to disagree about her being radical because, she's a fraud, just like 99% of the other Democrats. And, she just tells the base what they want to hear. But, again, this is how the Democrats operate. As an ex-Democrat, like I said, I can tell you, this is exactly what they do. They pander to their base, and they're not even convincing. Who's convinced by Kamala Harris? Who's convinced by Cory Booker? Who's convinced by Joe Biden? It's like, these are the most unserious, unconvincing people on the face of the earth. And, maybe some people are convinced, but especially if you're somebody like me who's of a younger of younger age and does research on these candidates all the time, you're not fooling anybody. You're not fooling anybody outside of your sort of cocktail circuits and basically older Democratic voters. So it's like, just drop the act. That's what I would say. Just nobody believes you. Nobody likes you. At least that's my age. We're not falling for it anymore, and you guys are too out of touch to realize that. So.
Yeah, something you said earlier was actually a point of mine about with Kamala saying ban private health insurance. And that's something that we're going to see a lot, is those three types of Democrats fighting to be the most that they're not. So Kamala's running to be the intersectional candidate, the black woman. So now she has to fight against the radical Democrats. Like, Bernie's a lot further to the left than she is, so she's trying to race to the left and keep up with him.
Yep.
And Bernie's going to try to keep up with the people that he can't get, and Biden's going to try to keep up with the people that he can't get. So they're all going to make each other more radical. Everyone's going to try to race to the left to keep up with Bernie, and everyone's going to try to race to the most tolerant side to keep up with Kamala Harris. They're going to be tolerant of something crazy next. It's just good. They're all going to offer more free stuff to keep up with the millennials that Beto and Bernie have. It's just going to be really terrifying, but I don't know if that's good for Republicans specifically. It's going to be really interesting and terrifying for the primaries, but for the general election, if they're all going to keep pushing each other left or keep pushing each other to the crazy side, Trump's probably going to wallop them. But one thing that is interesting to note is Howard Schultz. It doesn't seem like he's going to have much of an influence now, just because Democrats keep destroying him. But Howard Schultz is also planning on running as an independent, as the centrist, like the exact middle between Republicans and Democrats.
Ross Perot type of guy?
Yeah, he's basically running that kind of campaign, although Ross Perot, in my opinion, is better.
Yeah, Schultz is a radical centrist. But since he said that he wanted to run, Democrats started attacking him from every which way, saying, "Are you kidding me? You're going to split the vote between Democrats and give it to Trump?" He's like, "Listen, I don't care. I don't like any one of you. I want to give American people the chance to vote for not Trump and also not you crazy lefties."
Yeah. Which I think is good. You know, like you said, it gets a little bit wild in the primaries, but luckily, whatever crazy person wins in the primaries, they have only a few months to suddenly get all moderate again. You know,
Yeah.
and once they've already established that image, which the primaries go on for like a year, you know, they start having debates a whole year beforehand.
Yeah.
It bodes well for Republicans being like, I'll just pick Trump, better than the Democrat, right?
There's this strategy that the Democrats have used for decades now, called the general election pivot, which is basically what Obama did in order to get elected, which is basically in the primaries you run to the left and present yourself as this, I'm this uber progressive candidate, but then in the general election you race to the right and no, I will compromise the most, I'm totally moderate, you know. So it's like, so this is what happens when, and this is my whole point with the Democrats. I don't say they're left, I don't say they're right. They have no coherent ideology at all. They don't know what they're doing. They have no idea. They have no policy positions. They have no, 99% of them don't care about serious issues, don't care about the policies, don't care about regular Americans. They're just so incoherent, and they have no message, and they're so bad at politics, and they break the first rule all the time, and this is what I'll conclude with. The first rule of politics, electoral politics, never abandon your base. That's what they do all the time because they have no real policy commitments and goals.
Yeah, I actually don't think they're going to go with that this time, though. That's what I was going to say, is they're all digging their heels into the dirt as far as they can. Hey, I am the most socialist out of all the Democratic candidates, and I'm not moving from here. Hey, I'm the most tolerant of all the Democratic candidates, and I'm not moving from here. So I don't think that we're going to see them pivot at the last second like they usually do.
Well, it remains to be seen. I know, again, we're going to be getting into primary season soon, so we'll keep you updated on that as well as it gets closer.
Maybe we'll do the Republican breakdown next time.
Yeah, maybe.
Well, there's just Trump.
I mean, only one.
Oh, true.
Let's break down Trump. Who's going to win?
Let's break down John Kasich.
Trump versus Trump.
Yeah, well. All right, thank you guys so much for listening. You got more PA programming next. You're listening to WHRW 90.5 FM Binghamton. We'll see you next week.